Etepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefar. May Buddha bless you. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu. There's another video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about who are Sebek and Tehuti. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button at the bottom here. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you're interested in learning more about my spiritual teachings, I have free ebooks for you. Just scroll down, click on the links, and you can download them right away for free and start reading. However, if you want to go deeper into the matrix, you can become a Patreon supporter. As a supporter, you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos, videos on the esoteric, videos that'll show you how to contact the ancestors, how to summon spirits for your protection, how to do a money ritual, how to create a magical amulet, proper breathing exercises, how to astro travel, and how to work with the oracles. And if you're on the SARE level supporter, you get all your oracle readings for free. And you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. You can cancel at any time. So become a supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So, Haru Nefer, I wanted to make this video because my person was getting a little bit discombobulated and frustrated with some of the emails I'm getting and the feedback I'm getting from certain individuals. So before I go into Sebek and Tehuti, I think it's proper that I set this up. You see, I traveled across the country learning from different sages, gurus, sifus, senseis, whatever you want to call them. I remember going to one so-called sage. He happened to have the same name as me, paying about $5,000, and after 2 classes realized that he was a fraud and leaving. But I want you to understand and give you context of what I was searching for. I was searching for a complete system that I could study from A to Z, soup to nuts. And several times I found that system. One of the systems I found was the Japanese art of Kujikiri. And I found a really great teacher. He's an American. He was legitimate. He was licensed. But at no time in that process was I trying to piecemeal something together. You see, I'm getting emails from individuals who are telling me, you know, I asked them who they studied with. And if you'll get where I'm going when I talk about the Hotep community, and many of them are just self-taught. They read a lot of books and then regurgitate information, which basically makes them frauds. You know, because Ma'at says you are supposed to live this life. You're supposed to put it into practice. Anybody could read from the Western left brain perspective and regurgitate information. That's not learning. If you understand ancient Kemet and how they learn, learning is based on trance. But I digress. So I get people coming along and they're regurgitating really good talking points about the matrix, the inner planes, the Akashic records. But what I tend to find out is that they just piecemealed this together. They read this book, heard this lecture, you know, watched this YouTube video, and now they have some semblance or something they think is spirituality, which makes who they are. And they always betray themselves in how they talk. One woman who my person can't stand to hear her talk because she makes up everything and then says, oh, it's intuitively coming to me. Well, I can listen to what you're saying and find that there's no system. You see, I'm interested in a system that works, not you piecemealing things together that you heard, because from a cosmological perspective, those things can't coexist. Let's not get twisted here. For example, one guy I asked, I said, well, do you meditate? He goes, no, I don't meditate. I said, well, do you practice any type of hypnotherapy? No, I don't do any of that. Well, how do you change your behavior? Because that is the only way your behavior is going to change. Well, I know how to check my emotions. No, you don't. No, you don't. because your emotions are so deeply rooted into your subconscious mind. They have such a profound influence and a subtle influence. You won't even know it. And a lot of times we're downloading things from past, or what we consider, which are really present lifetimes, that play an impact in the role in how we think. And it's incorrect thinking. Because Sebek in his negative state is incorrect thinking. Other times I would ask certain teachers or sages, do you have an oracle system? Oh, no, we don't practice that. I'm like, well, how do you know what truth is? You don't. Well, we read and we go according to the 42 laws of Ma'at. I said, for one thing, those weren't meant as real laws. And how do you make correct judgments? Because you're brought up in a very evil, sadistic society. It's like a fish in dirty water. You ever have a fish and you don't clean your tank? And then the fish is saying, I'm healthy, I'm well. No, you're not. You're in a dirty tank. And if the tank is dirty, then you're polluted just as well. And we live in a dirty society, a sick society. And unless you're practicing a system, for example, the Tree of Life system by Ra'u Nefa Amen, you don't know what you're doing. And this is what many people come along and they think they're being spiritual. They think they're righteous. No, you are not. See, at no time when I was searching for a teacher was I looking to piecemeal things together. I was looking for a complete system that could work for me. And I found that in the Kemetic spiritual system, or the Kemetic mystery, the Egyptian mystery school. A complete system. But you guys think that you go around and you're learning from books, YouTube videos, lecture here, and you come up with an idea and you try to live it, and you think that now you are spiritual, you live in truth. No, you're not. You have a skewed view on the world. And it pains me to say this, that you think that you're living spiritual, but you're no better off than the other people who we call Sahu, who are operating the animal spirit or their emotions. You can't just check your emotions. Judges, lawyers have all tried it to no avail. They've failed. This is why the Kemetic people spend so much time in crafting the Metu Neter, where you see different renditions of people with animal parts. That represents you being controlled by an animal spirit. Their whole spiritual cultivation system was about you transcending your emotions, rising above the mammalian and reptilian brain to the neocortex, to become Haru. You don't do that by walking around and saying, I'm going to check my emotions. It doesn't work that way. I wish if it worked that way, that easy, we'd all be sages. We all would be enlightened. This is why your Buddhist monks go up into the mountains and meditate for years, trying to transcend the ego, because it's that difficult. It's not easy. You can't just go up there one day and stand up and say, I'm going to check my emotions. You're an idiot if you think you can do that. Mike Tyson said it best. Everybody has a plan until they get hit. You think you can check your emotions? Wait till your mate gets after you. Wait till your boss comes after you for something that he or she perceived you didn't do. And let me see you check your emotions then. So stop fooling yourself and thinking you're spiritual. And I have to say this because there are people running around calling themselves spiritual and enlightened when you're not. You're not. I was coaching a student for about 6 months. And I finally got around because I was so busy to asking her, how many times you're meditating per day? She goes, oh, I haven't meditated. And I said, you mean I've been working with you for 6 months and you haven't meditated? No, I don't need to. And I just threw up my hands and said, if you're not meditating, you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. You're just intellectually masturbating off the information I'm giving you. And too many of us do that. You go to church and the preacher gets there, he's all animated. It's just intellectual masturbation because you go in the rest of the 6 days during the week. You act out of your sahu part of your spirit. You're an animal. People freak out when I talk about, yesterday I meditated for 5 hours because I'm seriously committed to transcending my ego. I'm not playing. I'm not being half against it. There's no shortcut to this. You can't hear a lecture. You can't go to a retreat, a weekend seminar and think, now you're spiritual. I'm one with all. Namaste. Namaste. Now let's get into the whole thing about Sebek and Tehuti, because that plays directly into what I'm saying. There's two things we got to look at here. We look at Sebek, who is a left brain. Sebek is belief. Sebek is I think. Why does Sebek say I think? Because Sebek doesn't know. So he has to think. When you know, it's the absence of thinking. Tahuti says, I know. Tahuti is the sage. He's wisdom. He is above Sebek. Let's go and take a look at the tree of life to illustrate my point. Okay. When we look at here, we look up at the second sphere, which is Tahuti. All knowing, the will of God, seat of intuition. Now, directly opposite of that, which is complementing that, is Sebek. He's segregated thinking. He works through thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, rationalizations, logic. Now, there's a reason why, and this chart is a system of thinking and spiritual practice. Now, there's a reason why Sebek is on the lower triad and Tahuti's higher, because we value wisdom higher than we value reasoning, thoughts, beliefs. Beliefs are an idea empowered with an emotion. Let me say it again. Beliefs are an idea empowered with their emotions, and they do not in any way represent truth. For truth, we go to Ma'at and Tehuti. Ma'at and Tehuti are husband and wife, brother and sister. When you are trying to elevate your consciousness and who you are, you start at the bottom, 10, and you go all the way up to the level of Oser, the Ba division. And you're working with each sphere. You work with Tehuti, you work with Ma'at, you work with Sekert. So please understand that, okay? The problem is we're living in a Western society that has elevated the left brain because Sebek is cunning, trickery. So we think that the left brain is the end all and be all of existence. If I think and my logic is tight, I am wise. No, you're not. You think, therefore you don't know. I think. Tahuti knows. Tahuti is the absence of thinking. And when you're practicing, and you're walking in the path of Tahuti, you do the meditations which clear thoughts out of your mind. So you can connect with the Akashic records and gain God's wisdom. But because you're not at that level, you haven't achieved that type of knowledge or way to gain access to the Akashic records, you need an intermediary, which is the oracles. You go to the oracles because the oracles are the objective truth. The oracles are beyond the influence of emotions, which is why in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, when we had our judicial system, it was based on readings from the oracle. Same thing in ancient Greece with the Oracle of Delphi. We knew that a judge who is not a sage could not sentence an individual because he would be easily susceptible to emotions. So we went to the oracle and said, what is the punishment for this individual? And the oracle then would tell us what to do. But in this society, Western society is so perverted that we think the mind is the most supreme thing. It is not. It is this thing that has gotten the world into trouble. It is Sebek in his negative form that has corrupted the world. Movies you see are all about getting over on other people, being cunning. That's a Sebek trait. That's a left brain idea. And since the left brain is segregative, it can't see the totality of how its decisions impact things. Call this the butterfly effect. What you do resonates and has an effect. For that, we go to Tahuti, because Tahuti can tell us that based on our actions, how it will impact the whole. And Tahuti is the higher mind. The higher mind can see everything, the whole of everything. Sebek can only see the immediate, what's in front of him. And you think because you think you have good Sebek logic that you can now make decisions. Even though, as in the 48th hexagram of the I-ching, the well, which is pointing to you, what have you put in the well? What have you put in your subconscious mind? Even though your subconscious mind is polluted with prejudices, incorrect thinking, wrong ideas given to you by social engineering and subliminal influences, you think you're making correct decisions. No, you're not. You are not. Because most of you rely on deductive reasoning or deductive logic, and that's flawed. Deductive logic says you walk into a room and you see a guy holding a gun standing over his wife who's been shot in the back, and you deduce based on the facts that he shot her, but that's incorrect. You don't know that. Only Tahuti can tell you if he actually shot his wife. We have created universities, media institutions based on Sebek, the left brain. And consequently, we have put the world into the darkness, into the dark ages, because our ancestors relied upon Tahuti, the right brain, the third eye, as a measure of what is right and wrong and wisdom. See, when your third eye is open, you can see what you cannot, you can see what cannot be seen. You can perceive that cannot be perceived. Your third eye is the key, which is why it was so important in ancient Kemet. But you, because you think and you use the left brain, you use Sebek, you go around and you try to piecemeal spirituality, and then you think it can coexist, that all this different information can coexist. It doesn't form a nice cosmological perspective. For that cosmology, you have to go to Tahuti and Ma'at. And what I mean by that is doing an eco check, as we call it in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, meaning do these different beliefs coexist with one another? Let me give you a case in point. I don't vote. I don't get in politics. So I don't have a dog in the race. But when you take two political candidates, we say Donald Trump and Biden, and you think one is a better option than the other, then you fooled yourself. You've engaged in the Hegelian dialectic. You have engaged in incorrect thinking because you think that one is racist, but you can't fathom or even take into consideration that both candidates are equally as racist. And that two choices is no choice. So the media easily influences you by telling you about the Proud Boys, SWAT stickers, white supremacy. He supports white supremacy. And you buy into that because for you, you have been taught that there's one is good and the other is bad. That's incorrect thinking. Tahuti says nothing has a quality in and of itself. The great I-ching oracle tells us everything serves to further. But you can't comprehend that. You think someone is your enemy, and Osir tells us there is no enemy. There is no enemy. But the media has to concoct an enemy to manipulate you. ISIS, Saddam Hussein. They have to concoct an enemy to manipulate you. And you buy into it using your left brain. And then you allow your emotions to play a role in that. I had a brother say to me, I don't like what you said. I said, well, you're not supposed to like or dislike what I said. You're supposed to be beyond the influence of emotions. If you are an adept or aspiring to be Osir, you transcend emotions. You transcend the person. So you don't come to me and say, I don't like what you said. You can say in the correct terminology, my person didn't like what you said, but my true self is beyond the influence of emotions. And many of you don't have respect for a teacher or a guru. You debate me on things that are ridiculously trivial, but you don't come to the table and say the first thing, I don't know, please teach me. What did the student say to Bruce Lee that impressed him? He said, I've emptied my glass. Please help me fill it. So he was telling Bruce Lee, he's throwing away all of his beliefs, his old ideas. And his cup, he's empty. He's ready for Bruce Lee to help him fill it. And Bruce Lee was like, oh man, your wisdom, what you're saying is cool. But this is a way of life. So many of you don't come to the table emptying your minds. You come to the table with the prejudices and you say this and you say that, which shows me that you're just way off and you're not ready to learn. I never once said to the king who taught me, I disagree with you. Because his knowledge and thinking was so far beyond mine, I was not on the same level as him to disagree with him. Let me say it again. I was not even on the same level to disagree with him. My role was to shut up and listen and learn until one day, hopefully, I would get to the level of a Shechem and then be able to have a discourse with him. You guys come right out the gate. Qesankh, I disagree with you. Qesankh, I think this. And I'm like, I'm patient and I tend to let it roll off. But I'm in my head, I'm thinking how disrespectful these people are. You just need to be quiet and listen, and I'll fill your cup. Stop thinking you know, because you don't know, and just shut up and listen. My Japanese master that I learned from, if I had told him, well, I disagree with you, he did a roundhouse kick to my head. And if you guys don't believe me, go study with the Japanese. Go overseas and study with them. They do not play. What is it called? Corporal punishment? They believe in that. Some of them carry large sticks, and if you get out of line, they'll hit you in the head with the stick. They don't play. Discipline is enforced. Here in America, you could debate. You could debate with your teacher. Not over in Japan. You open your mouth, you get your butt kicked. Highly regimented over there. Discipline, a regiment. You get up 6 in the morning, meditate 2 hours, go out and then do Qigong or Tai Chi, then go out and then study. There was no, I disagree with you. If you find a teacher who has some true wisdom and a system of learning, honor that teacher. Honor that teacher. I would bring gifts to my king to tell him how honored I was to learn from him. My Japanese instructor, I brought him gifts. He didn't ask for it, but I brought him gifts because I was honored and privileged to be a student with him. I studied 3 years with him, and it was the most exciting time of my life. And in that 3 years, I couldn't believe I was learning from him. He was written up in magazines, highly praised. And I knew what a privileged position I was in that he accepted me as a student. Now, just a funny story. The king that I learned from, sometimes he would forget my name. he would call me by the wrong name, but I knew he was talking. He'd be like, he'd call me to come up there. And at first I was looking around for like, is he talking to me? And this one woman next to me said, yeah, he's talking to you, but you got to tell him you got to correct him and let him know what your name is, because he's calling you by the wrong name. And I was too scared to correct him. So I would just run up there and he would demonstrate. And then the next day he would call me again. And I'm like, is he talking? Oh, yeah, I guess he's talking to me. Yeah. I was like, I think I should talk to him about, like, that's not my name, but it's okay. But that was the honor and respect I gave, Our ancestors in the Kemetic spiritual system that I'm teaching have left us a wonderful legacy. Honor it, practice it. Stop trying to go different places and piecemeal stuff together. It don't work. It can't coexist. And I don't ask for much, just that you practice this stuff and don't just intellectually get off on it. It's very important. If you look at the Japanese, they carry their systems on from generation to generation to generation. They keep it pure. They don't change it because they value their traditions and their heritage. We don't. We don't. Which is why the Muslims have destroyed the pyramids and the temples in ancient Egypt. Meanwhile, they'll die to protect their religion of Islam in the name of Muhammad. Will you die to protect Osir? I think not. Will you die to protect your sages? I think not. I studied with Joseph Ben Jamacanan. I studied with Dr. John Henry Clark. These people, when they died, they were poor. How is it even possible? How could that be possible? They couldn't afford to bury Dr. Ben. People had to come in and donate money to give him a proper funeral. That's a shame. That is a shame. Meanwhile, we give our money to the wrong institutions like Black Lives Matter, give them billions of dollars, and they go and they betray us. Because our thinking is wrong. If we had gone to the oracles, we would have known that BLM was a corrupt institution. If Black men did an oracle reading on Louis Farrakhan and the Million Man March, they would have known that they're being deceived. I actually did an oracle reading on T.D. Jakes. Now, I knew he wasn't on the level, but the oracle told me corrupt, evil. I was a bit shocked by that. I thought the oracle will just say, oh, he's not a righteous man. But the oracle was adamant about this man is corrupt. Don't follow him. But you do your own oracle reading. You do your own oracle reading on whoever you want, and do it even on me if I'm a good teacher. And if the oracle says don't learn from Qesankh, then move on. If the oracle says learn from Qesankh, then shut up and let me fill your cup. This is Qesankh Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, I'm in Ra.